Welcome to this lecture on animal behavior. Today, we are going to explore two of the most fascinating concepts in biology, polyphenism and polyethism. Imagine if you and your identical twin looked completely different just because of what you ate, or if your entire career path was strictly determined by your exact age. In the world of social insects, like honeybees, this is not science fiction. It is everyday reality. These two mechanisms allow insect colonies to survive and thrive in unpredictable environments. Let us dive in and see how nature achieves this incredible flexibility. To begin our journey, let us understand what polyphenism actually is. In biology, a genotype is your genetic code, and a phenotype is your physical form. Usually, different physical forms come from different genes, but polyphenism is a biological phenomenon where two or more distinct physical forms are produced by the exact same genetic blueprint. The changes are entirely driven by outside environmental cues, such as diet, temperature, or the length of the day. This matters immensely in nature because it allows a colony to produce exactly the types of individuals it needs without waiting for random genetic mutations to occur over generations. Now that we understand the general idea of polyphenism, let us look at a specific, famous example: nutritional polyphenism in honeybees. In a hive, a female larva has the potential to become either a massive egg-laying queen or a small sterile worker bee. They share the exact same DNA. The only difference is their diet. If a larva is fed exclusively a protein-rich secretion called royal jelly, her reproductive organs develop fully. If she gets standard worker jelly, she becomes a sterile worker. This environmental flexibility is an evolutionary life hack. If a queen dies, workers simply change the diet of a regular larva to instantly create a new leader, ensuring the colony's survival. This incredible physical transformation leads us to an important question. How do biologists measure this scientifically? We use the classic equation for phenotypic variance. This formula breaks down the total physical variation in an organism into genetic and environmental parts. VP represents the total phenotypic variance, which is the physical difference we actually see, like the size difference between a queen and a worker. VG stands for genetic variance, or differences in DNA. VE represents environmental variance, which in our bee example is the diet. Finally, VGE is the interaction between genetics and the environment. If the environmental difference increases, the physical difference increases, allowing us to quantify exactly what drives these biological changes. Before we move on, let us see this formula in action with a concrete example. Imagine a researcher is studying a colony of honeybees where all female larvae are genetically identical clones. The researcher measures the physical size differences between the adult bees and finds a total phenotypic variance of 50 units. We are asked to find the environmental variance. Because the bees are clones, we know the genetic variance is exactly 0. We are also told the interaction term is negligible, so we set that to 0 as well. By substituting these values into our equation, we set up a simple relationship to isolate the environmental component. This setup is the crucial first step in understanding the colony's dynamics. Now that we have set up our equation, let us solve it to prove the dominance of the environment in this scenario. We start with our substituted equation, where 50 equals 0 plus VE plus 0. By simplifying the right side and removing the 0 terms, we are left with only the environmental variance. This gives us a final value of VE equals 50. Mathematically, this is a very straightforward algebraic step, but biologically, it is profound. It shows that the entire physical difference we observed must come from the environment. Let us finalize this proof on the next slide to see what this means for polyphenism. So we have proven that the environmental variance is exactly 50 units. This brings us to our final result. When we divide the environmental variance by the total phenotypic variance, we get 50 over 50, which equals 100%. This mathematically proves that 100% of the physical differences between these bees is caused by their environment, specifically their diet. The diet completely overrides any need for genetic changes. This perfectly illustrates the core concept of polyphenism. The environment alone dictates the physical form, allowing the colony to adapt instantly without altering its genetic code. Now that we understand how a colony creates different types of bees, how do they decide who does what job? This introduces our second major concept, polyethism. Polyethism is defined as the division of labor among members of an animal society, where different individuals specialize in different behaviors or tasks. Imagine a busy restaurant where new employees wash dishes and only the most experienced chefs cook the food. Instead of having one bee do every single chore, they divide the labor. This prevents chaos and ensures that every job, from cleaning to foraging, is handled by a specific group. By specializing, the colony operates like a highly efficient factory assembly line. Building on the idea of division of labor, the most common type in honeybees is called age polyethism, or temporal polyethism. This means a worker bee's job changes predictably as she gets older. For the first few days, she cleans the hive. Then she becomes a nurse, and later a builder. Finally, in the last stage of her life, she leaves the hive to become a forager. This is not just about efficiency. It is a brilliant evolutionary strategy for risk management. Foraging outside is incredibly dangerous due to predators and weather. By assigning the oldest bees to this dangerous task, the colony ensures that if a forager dies, she has already contributed weeks of safe indoor labor. Let us visualize this behavioral shift with a diagram. Here, you see the age polyethism timeline for a typical worker bee. The horizontal axis represents the bee's age in days. Notice how the timeline is divided into 4 distinct phases. From day 0 to 3, the bee is dedicated to cell cleaning. As she moves into the 4 to 12-day window, her nursing glands develop and she feeds the larvae. Between days 13 and 20, she builds honeycomb and guards the hive. Finally, from day 21 onwards, she takes on the dangerous role of foraging for nectar. This diagram clearly shows how the colony systematically utilizes its workforce, pushing the highest risk tasks to the very end of a worker's lifespan. This highly organized timeline leads us to ask, how much more efficient is this system? In behavioral ecology, we quantify this using a task allocation equation. This formula calculates the total success, or fitness, of the hive. W represents the total work output of the colony. The symbol N is the total number of different tasks, like nursing and foraging. The variable E sub I represents the efficiency of a single worker performing a specific task, and N sub I is the number of workers assigned to that task. The sigma symbol means we add up the work from all the different tasks. When bees specialize, their individual efficiency, E sub I, increases, which mathematically drives up the total colony fitness, W.
Let us apply this formula to a concrete example to see the impact of specialization. First, we will calculate the work output for a confused, unspecialized colony. We are given a small hive with 100 bees that attempt to do both nursing and foraging. Because they are constantly switching jobs, their efficiency is a very low 2 units per task. We multiply the 100 bees by this low efficiency of 2 for nursing and do the same for foraging. Adding these together, we find that the total work output for this unspecialized colony is only 400 units. This baseline shows us what happens when a society lacks division of labor.
Now that we have our baseline, let us prove mathematically why polyethism is superior. We will calculate the output for the same colony, but this time utilizing age polyethism. The 100 bees are now divided into 2 dedicated groups, 50 young nurses and 50 older foragers. Because they specialize and do not switch tasks, their individual efficiency jumps significantly to 5 units each. We set up our equation by multiplying the 50 nurses by their efficiency of 5 and adding that to the 50 foragers multiplied by their efficiency of 5. This setup captures the mathematical essence of division of labor. Let us complete the calculation to see the final result. 50 times 5 gives us 250 units of work for nursing and another 250 for foraging. Adding these together, the specialized colony produces a total of 500 units of work. When we compare this to the unspecialized colony's 400 units, the conclusion is clear. 500 is strictly greater than 400. This mathematically demonstrates that polyethism significantly increases the overall productivity of the hive. By allowing individuals to master specific tasks, the insect society maximizes its energy output, proving exactly why division of labor is such a successful evolutionary strategy. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us review the key takeaways. First, we learned that polyphenism allows a single genetic blueprint to create entirely different physical forms, like queens and workers, based purely on environmental triggers, like diet. Second, we saw how polyethism takes those workers and organizes their behavior, ensuring that tasks are divided efficiently based on age. We proved mathematically that this division of labor maximizes the colony's work output while managing the risks of foraging. Together, these twin pillars transform a group of individual insects into a single, highly efficient superorganism capable of adapting to almost any challenge. Thank you for joining this lecture.